Good morning.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you for this opportunity.
And busy time. Mr. President, we are now entering the 6th week of the war in Nagorno-Karabakh. What is exactly at this point the situation at the front line?
Situation on the front line is showing the dominance of Azerbaijani army. We liberate one village and one city after another. And during this time on the battlefield, Azerbaijan liberated large part of its territory, which was under occupation for almost 30 years. And the successful offensive operation of Azerbaijani army continues. And this once again shows that we are a strong country and we are fighting on our own soil. We restore international territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, and by the way, we implement the United Nations Security Council resolutions which demanded withdrawal of Armenian troops from our territories, but were not implemented by Armenia for almost 30 years.
You want to recover the 7 occupied districts, 5+2. How much of those have you already restored?
Actually, 4 of the 5 occupied districts have already been liberated, either completely or partially. And today we are in an active phase of deoccupation of other districts which have been under occupation. And as I said, we implement UN Security Council resolutions. And by the way, we already implement part of the basic principles, because the basic principles for settlement, which have been proposed by the OSCE Minsk group, actually demanded the liberation of occupied territories of Azerbaijan. Unfortunately, Armenia was not willing to do it voluntarily, therefore we had to force them to do it.
Both sides have agreed already to 3 humanitarian ceasefire, but none was helped for not even a few minutes. Why is it impossible to stop the war and sit down to talk?
I think one of the reasons why these ceasefires didn't work was the attempt of Armenia to regain back the territories which have been already liberated by us. In other words, they wanted to occupy them again. Therefore, they tried to use the ceasefire, which, as you correctly mentioned, was announced on humanitarian grounds, in order to mobilize their resources and launch a new attack. And when they failed to do it, they launched a ballistic missile attack from the territory of Armenia on the 2nd largest city of Azerbaijan, Ganja. They did it twice, but first time on the 10th of October, right after the ceasefire was announced, and that caused the killings of 10 civilians, and tens have been wounded. So they brutally violated the first ceasefire. The second ceasefire also was violated by them in about 5 minutes after the announced time. And the third ceasefire they violated by attacking the peaceful city of Barda, where 21 people, civilians, were killed and 70 wounded. So all 3 times it was Armenian deliberate aggressive attack on us, and we had to respond, we had to defend ourselves.
You said that you want a concrete calendar for the withdrawal of Armenian troops. Armenia said that it is willing to compromise but not to surrender or capitulate those territories. Are you willing to compromise too, and what does this compromise look like?
First of all, our position has been already many times declared during this almost 40 days. On many occasions, I said that our task is to restore territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, return 1 million Azerbaijani refugees and internally displaced persons to their homelands, to the territories where they lived for centuries, and after that, to provide peaceful coexistence between Azerbaijani and Armenian community in that area. Our position is based on the common sense, on humanitarian grounds and is supported by international community. So it's very clear. Armenia, when they talk about compromise, they do not say anything concrete. They talk only about self-determination, but self-determination is not a compromise on their side. They should be more accurate in their position because it's very ambiguous now. Therefore, we demanded the timetable for withdrawal of Armenian troops from the occupied territories, and we demanded it from the very first day of the clashes. So if Armenia listened to us and behaved in a reasonable way, today we wouldn't have had a situation which we are now facing. The war would have stopped maybe a month ago. Therefore, compromise from Armenian side should be very precise, and the timetable for withdrawal from part of Agdam district, which is still under occupation, and from Kelbecer and Lachin should be presented to us, and Armenian Prime Minister should personally declare that. But not only they don't give us a timetable, they do not say that they will liberate those territories. During all this time, since 27th of September, never Armenian military political leadership said anything about liberation of territories. In this case, they actually show disrespect to Minsk Group co-chairs, which elaborated these principles providing return of 7 territories, and they actually lead to more escalation. So we expect from Armenian Prime Minister to say openly, publicly, that they will withdraw from Kelbecer, Lachin, and the remaining part of Agdam.
And if not, there's only the military option for you.
Nothing is left for, there's no other option. We don't want to continue military operations. And I said many times and can repeat today, if Armenian Prime Minister, personally him, the person who is responsible for this bloodshed, makes such a statement, we're ready to stop immediately. Immediately. And I'm a person who keeps his word, and we will do it. But he doesn't say it. He wants to win time. He wants to have the ceasefire in order to get some more military assistance. He wants to use this ceasefire in order to launch new attacks on Azerbaijan and to regain back the territories which we liberated. That's what he is after.
Are you willing to sit down at this point with Mr. Pashinyan, or is there no point in it?
No point in that at all. I had many meetings with him during the last 2 years, but all of them were absolutely useless and senseless, except the first meetings where he promised me that if Azerbaijan gives him a time after so-called revolution, he will make his homework, he will strengthen his position politically in Armenia, and then he will be willing to work constructively and in order to implement the basic principles. That was what he told me in the early months of his leadership in Armenia. But after a year, he said completely different things. He said that there'll be no centimeter of land to be returned to Azerbaijan. He said Karabakh is Armenia. He said that Azerbaijan have to negotiate with so-called authorities of this quasi, entity Nagorno-Karabakh. So he did everything to destroy negotiation process. Therefore, at this point, I don't see any sense meeting with him. Our foreign ministers met recently in Geneva, and I think this is the proper format now for the communications.
You said that almost during 30 years, the Minsk group did nothing or didn't reach any progress to recover the occupied territories. Now, in a new peace process, what do you expect from the US, France, and Russia?
Yes, you are right. I said that Minsk group did not deliver any result. But at the same time, I said that I cannot completely ignore the activity and only criticize them, because the basic principles which are on the table now, it's the principles which were elaborated with the assistance of the Minsk group. So they worked, they tried, but they did not use all the tools which they have in order to press Armenia to liberate the territories. Each of these countries unilaterally has enough leverages on Armenia, whether it's military support, political support, economic support, diasporal support, etc. But they did not use these instruments in their hands. They did not insist on implementation of the UN Security Council resolutions, which they themselves adopted as a permanent members of UN Security Council resolution. Therefore, the fact that there was no result, of course, demonstrates their unwillingness rather than they could not. If they could not, then who can? The three permanent members of the Security Council cannot influence small, impoverished, dependent Armenia. They just didn't want. They wanted a situation to be stable, this is true. They wanted, peaceful scenario, but when they saw that for almost 30 years, there is no peaceful scenario, and the new Armenian government actually destroys the process by statements and actions, I think they should have acted. And I called many times, talking with their leaders, talking with the high-ranking officials, insert pressure on Armenia, put sanctions. If you don't want to put sanctions, at least pronounce it, announce it, that the sanctions will be imposed. Otherwise, there'll be no other mechanism to influence this aggressor. So today, I think they realized that what they were saying many years, that there is no military solution to the conflict, was wrong. And we changed that reality. There is a military solution. But today, what we're talking about, let's just close that page of military solution and move to the political solution. So military, political solution must prevail. We are ready to stop today if Armenian Prime Minister says what I already demanded from him. And peace process should be based now on implementation of the rest part of the basic principles, which partly have been already implemented. We need a precise timetable for Kelbajar, Lachin, and part of Agdam to be liberated. And then I think the peace will come to the region.
Mm-hmm. I must also ask you about the statements of Amnesty International that both sides actually have used cluster bombs, and now you and also Erevan is claiming that both sides have used phosphorus, white phosphorus, incendiary weapons against civilians. Do you use prohibited weapons under international convention?
We do not use forbidden weapons. We have enough ammunition in order to restore our territorial integrity, first. Second, we do not attack civilians. We do not attack cities in Nagorno-Karabakh after 10th of October. Before, yes, we admitted, but that was because most of the military units and infrastructure of Armenian army was concentrated in the so-called capital of Nagorno-Karabakh, Khankendi. So we had to hit those important military objects in order to provide security for us and to make our operation more efficient. But after the humanitarian ceasefire was announced, and many times we announced that, we never hit any city or any village where people lived. What Armenia did, on the contrary, is they launched ballistic missiles from Armenian territory to Ganja, and it is proved. Though Armenian Prime Minister said it was not them, but it is ridiculous because ballistic missile launch is being monitored by the satellites. Everybody knows from where it was launched and what was the goal of that missile. It was deliberately hitting the civilian compounds in Ganja 2 times. They hit Barda 2 times with a very destructive Smerch missiles, and 21 person was killed and 70 wounded only by 1 attack. There have been many attacks. They attacked the funeral ceremony in Terter. That is absolutely beyond any norms of human behavior. When people were burying the person who died, they hit the cemetery and 4 people were killed. And the cluster bombs which they used have been verified by international media and NGOs. And I'm sure that the first who reported about that were international media who visited that, and Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. They just didn't have any other option rather than to acknowledge that. But the question is why they didn't come in the first place to Azerbaijan. Why they were only working on Armenian side. Only after international media, Western media, showed those cluster bombs which Armenians use, then these two NGOs confirmed that. It is good that they did, but frankly speaking, I cannot imagine how they could not confirm it, because when it's obvious.
Russia said yesterday, Mr. Lavrov said yesterday, there are nearly 2,000 mercenaries battling or combating in Nagorno-Karabakh. What do you have to say regarding that?
I answered many times to these accusations, these groundless accusations, and I frankly speaking regret that the high-ranking officials of the countries which are supposed to be neutral, which are supposed to be acting within their mandate, which was given to them by OSCE, use this, unverified, groundless, so-called information and rumors. So first. Second, we don't have any mercenaries. Many times I said about that. We don't need them. We have an army of 100,000 fighters. We can recruit several times more if we announce total mobilization, which we don't do, unlike what Armenia did. There is no evidence of any foreign fighters fighting on our side. No evidence during this time since more than 1 month. Not a single document, not a single proof was given to us. Only statements. But then why they don't see what is happening on Armenian side? How many mercenaries are fighting on Armenian side? Why neither Russia nor France, which tried to accuse us, why didn't say anything about that? We have a list of people already eliminated with foreign passports, American, French, Canadian, Lebanese, from Iraq, from countries of the post-Soviet area, tens of them coming from Georgia. Yes, they are native Armenians, but it doesn't make any difference. If they're citizens of other country, they are considered to be acting there illegally. And so far, nothing was said about that, though we have proofs. We have passports in our hands. We have evidence, video. Nothing is said about that. So this is a selective approach which cannot be accepted by us. It is not in line with the mandate of mediators. I said many times, mediators must be neutral. If they take sides, it's up to them, but then they have to step down from mediation. Every country can have good or bad relations with any country. We understand there is a special feelings towards Armenians due to some reasons from some countries. But in national capacity, we don't mind. But if you're a mediator, please be neutral and stay away from accusations. If we start to accuse those who accuse us about mercenaries, about what they do in different parts of the world, it will be a long story, very long story. We don't do it. Therefore, we expect the same from our partners.
What do you say to those who state that Turkey is not only giving you help, political help, but also military one?
I would say that this is another provocation, another false news. There is no any military support from Turkey, apart from the fact that we are buying modern military equipment from Turkey. This is true. And this is a sophisticated, modern equipment that I think every army in the world would have envied, about. And Turkey's military industrial complex really demonstrates miracles. And this equipment helps us a lot on the battlefield. But we buy it. We sign contracts. Everything is transparent. Everything is legal. We buy weapons from other countries. Why nobody talks about how many weapons we bought from Russia? Only Turkey, because Turkey is now in the center of attack from, unfortunately, different, European politicians. There are attempts to demonize Turkey. There are attempts to blackmail Turkey, to press it. This is absolutely unacceptable. Main weapons come from Russia. We buy weapons from other countries. Only Turkey is here. So this is first. Second, those who always keep saying that Turkey provides military support to us, why don't they say that Russia provides military support to Armenia? Mediator, Minsk Group co-chair. We have proofs in our hands. We delivered this information to Russian officials. How much weapons were delivered to Armenia during these 40 days? Why nobody talks about that? Let's talk about that. Let's be fair. Therefore, first, this is wrong. Second, we buy Turkish military equipment and we will continue to do it. And third, there should be no double standards about that. And those, by the way, who tell that Azerbaijan is military supported by Turkey, I think should refrain from these absurd accusations.
Turkey has obviously interests in the region, as have also Iran and Russia. Armenia has asked Russia for the possibility to guarantee its security. Do you fear an internationalization of the war?
That's what Armenia wanted to do from the very beginning. And we were always against. I said many times to all the countries, stay away from this conflict. It is our business, it's our battle for territorial integrity. And there should be no attempts to internationalize the conflict. But Armenia did everything to do it. And the letter which Armenian Prime Minister sent to Russian President not only demonstrates that they already admit their defeat, that we beat them on the battlefield, it also shows that they want to internationalize the conflict. They want to drag Russia into a direct participation on the ground, which is absolutely unacceptable, and as far as I know, was rejected by Russia, and Russian foreign minister issued a statement about that. Maybe I'm not precisely correct in my words, but the sense was that the fight is taking place on the territory of Azerbaijan. If Azerbaijan attacks, or if any country attacks Armenia, then Russia will have their, obligations. But the battle is going on our soil. So these attempts, I think, are absolutely useless. Russian position was articulated by the foreign minister. Iranian position was also articulated. Probably you heard about Iranian plan for the settlement, which provides territorial integrity of countries. And recently, the Iranian religious leader made a statement that Armenia should liberate internationally recognized territories of Azerbaijan. So this is a reaction of two neighbors. Position of Turkey is well known. It always stands for international law and UN Security Council resolutions. Georgia, on many occasions before, also supported Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. This is a position of our neighbors. So Armenia is in isolation. So they want to internationalize the conflict. They want to exploit some fake news and some fake news from the history in order to get support. But the best way for Armenia to act now is to admit their defeat, admit our victory, and make a commitment that they will liberate the remaining part of the territories.
If they recognize the independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, what would your reaction be?
If they wanted to recognize, they would have recognized a long time ago. Why they did not recognize it before? Because they clearly understand that by this very irrational step, negotiations will stop. Absolutely. So if they do it, there'll be nothing to talk about. And then no peaceful initiative, no basic principles, no future, settlement, nothing will be on the table. So I think that they understand it. They always wanted to use it as a kind of instrument in order to frighten us, saying that if Azerbaijan does that, we will recognize. I tell them many times during these days of war, and I tell now, Armenian Prime Minister, recognize Nagorno-Karabakh today. Do it. Show your courage. Show that your words mean something. Recognize Nagorno-Karabakh today. Again, and you will see that they will not do it, because they are cowards. They can fight only against peaceful civilians. And when they see this, they run away.
Would you be willing to accept an autonomous region?
This should be part of the future discussions on the basic principles, because the first part of the basic principles demanded the withdrawal of occupied territories, 5+2 in timetable. Then there were other elements of the basic principles like security, peacekeeping operations, status of Nagorno-Karabakh, and we always were very open to discuss it. We offered them many times, different ways, but they rejected. We offered them autonomy inside Azerbaijan. We offered them, cultural autonomy. We said that there are good examples in the world, in Europe, in Scandinavia, these Alan Islands, in Italy, with this Southern Tyrol, district, in many other, but they rejected everything. They demanded independence only, and they wanted us to recognize this independence. By doing that, they actually, knowing that we will never do it, they were doing everything to freeze the conflict. So I don't know, we need to first to end this hot, stage of the conflict, come back to negotiation table. Armenia should make these commitments, which I already said, and then we can talk about what will be happening in the future. I cannot say anything about that now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your questions, for your interest in Azerbaijan.